on the call from Grand Valley with Shelburne Public Library, and we have Rose and Jay joining us today, and Hospice Dufferin, and we have Brianna on the call with us. And so together we run the 100% Certainty Book Club, which some of you are members of, but some of you may have never heard of. And this is a book club designed to help break the stigma around death and grief by encouraging conversation about it. So how we do this is we read popular novels that might focus on loss in some capacity or grief in some capacity, and it just kind of launches us into a conversation about things, and we can talk maybe about personal experiences or just about the characters in the book, and in doing so we kind of destigmatize to death, which helps everyone in their grieving process. So Marina, who I've worked with previously, when she heard about this book club, she thought it'd be a fantastic way to share the series that her and Marian have recently published in the spring. So that is why we're hosting them here today. And before I turn it over to them, I'm just going to give a little bit of a bio for each of them. So Marina grew up in rural Ontario, and she has since lived and worked in countries all around the world as an educator, a journalist, a writer, and an artist. She brings her skills as a writer and her personal experience through grief to the Remember series. She's a great lover of nature, of animals, and the empowerment of individuals. And you can see Marina there. She can just give a wave, but you can also see her name under her picture. And then we have her co-author, Marian, who was born in Switzerland, lived in Chad, Africa, and then settled in Toronto. Marian has 30+ years experience as a psychotherapist, an adoption practitioner, and a grief counselor. She brings her formal training and her experiences of grief together to co-create the Remember series. Marian is passionate about helping people find peace. All right, so I'm just going to bring up their presentation, and I'm going to mute myself, and we'll turn it over to you, lovely ladies.
Okay, well, hello to everybody, and thank you for joining us. We're going to have a PowerPoint, so it just is a little bit of a visual so that it helps you to connect a little bit better with what we're talking about. So our series is called Remember, It's Okay, which does work on a number of levels, and we'll leave that to you to think about. Right now, loss of a partner, loss for teens, and loss of a parent are the books that are currently available. Marian, do you have anything else for this screen?
I think that covers it. Right now, okay. They're available, and our next 3 will be out next year. So yeah, we'll get to those. Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to go to the next screen, Shannon, or do you do that? There we are. So these are what the books, the first 3 books look like, and they all have a similar look, so it's easy to find them. So they all have the open window, which is a symbol of hope and movement. Each vision or scene behind the open window is different for each book, and the banner underneath is a different color, and that's how each book is distinguished. So they are created for those who are grieving the loss of someone they love. They are also created for those seeking to know how to comfort and help someone who has experienced loss. And this is a very, very important part of this series that we feel has been missed in a great many other grief books. Marian, do you want to speak to that particular point for a moment?
Absolutely. When Marina and I put our heads together about the concept of writing some books, we both went to the place where we said what was missing in our own grief journeys. And then certainly myself, as I've been working with so many grieving folks, and finding supports and books that spoke the words, spoke their language, literally gave them words. So we wanted to create something for those that were grieving that was very different, that didn't already exist. And then in the book, we also, certainly one of my heart's passions is that grief is not a disorder. We need to learn how to support grieving people. And I think most people want to support a grieving friend or a grieving relative, but they don't necessarily know how. So we wanted to almost give coaching ideas, and we'll give you an example of that in a minute, but we wanted to give ideas and ways that people could literally begin to support people that they know that are experiencing loss, so that in our community, we can begin to care for one another at a very personal, human to human kind of level.
Yeah, and that's the important thing about how these books are written is that they are in first person. Mm-hmm. And so for somebody who wants to understand how a grieving person is actually feeling and what they would really say if they felt safe enough, that's how we learn how to help somebody who is grieving, is to understand how they think and how they feel. And then the conversation helps that person even know what to say, and maybe more importantly, what not to say. So do you have the next slide, Shannon? Okay, so one of the things that we felt was really missing and was quite a problem for grief and those in grief is the stages that everybody is very familiar with. But the stages were not designed for someone in grief. They were someone who was in palliative care. And so we've created something quite different that we feel allows for continual movement in grief, because it's not a linear process. So we've created a color pattern or web. And so as you go through the book, through the moments in the book, we start with red, which is when you're in red, you're in survival, in urgency. The orange, more of a beginning to find self. The yellow, coming back to self. Marian, do you want to read the last three?
Sure. Green, learning to balance self, learning. Turquoise, what path am I on now? Increased awareness and curiosity. And pale blue, clarity of the new path and beginning to move forward, increased openness.
Go ahead. I can't see you, so I don't know you're talking.
You go, Marina, go.
The reason that we felt this was important is because now people have a different language. They can say to somebody, you know, I'm in a red moment, and people will already know that's a sensitive issue, or I'm really in a pale blue moment today. So I have more ability to talk. I have more ability to be part of what's going on. And in the journey of grief, I lost my husband 6 years ago, actually next weekend. And I've done some great healing, but I can be in a red moment pretty quickly. And the difference is that now I know it will pass and it doesn't last as long, but it does give a different language for that person in grief and for that person trying to help somebody in grief. Marian?
We also found it gave people a sense of hope. They could see where they were, and sometimes they would read, as they were reading their book, they go, oh, wait a minute here, I'm in the yellow. I identify with the yellow moments. That means I've already started to move from red and orange, and I can feel that movement, and I remember that, but yeah, I am moving, and I can feel that in me. So, and some people will literally go to the light blue and want to read, okay, where's this journey what will that begin to feel like? So it's like tentatively, you can literally open the book anywhere you want to and get a sense of, okay, that's either where I am or I'm going to be able to get there. So the colors were gentle. They also give just visual. I mean, anybody could think of red and they might think of a different idea. Certainly we think of a red stop sign, we're stopped. And so these colors were, we ran them by someone who does color therapy, and she agreed with these colors that we were creating intuitively just through art and nature and experience. So they resonate with folks.
Perfect. We have the next slide, Stan. Okay, so as we were saying that we go, as you see in this slide, this is what the books look like. And so there is always a blank page on the right-hand side. And often we give a suggestion at the bottom so that we're helping you facilitate your own journey. And those pages are for you to write, glue things in, put photographs, write little notes, whatever you want to create your own journal of your journey through grief. And on the left side is the colors. So this is a red moment. And then you come to the orange moments and it continues on like that. And you can't quite see it, but each particular moment has the first person at the top, and that is not one person. That's what was quite tricky about writing this, is that I took the interviews from so many people that we did and research, and I would compile them into one moment, taking things from everyone. But that first person section at the top gives that feeling of that red moment that someone would be going through. And then the next one is Marian makes a response, and sometimes it's an actual dialogue that goes on between the support person and between the grieving person. So this is the format of all the books.
And something else to say about that, we wanted each moment to literally stand alone. Because when people are grieving, they don't time, they need space to be able to sit and be still. And so each moment isn't rushed into the next by the next moment being on the right hand, left hand, right hand. It's literally, this moment is the one you can be in and stay in. So yes, the grieving person can be writing something on that side page, but also then the person who's looking to understand somebody who's in grief, they will also be writing notes that highlight. It's like, wow, I didn't know this would be a feeling that somebody might experience. So they're creating their own learning tool by using that right-hand page. So this book literally becomes a very individualized personal tool in the journey, either of the grieving person or of the support person. And that was so intentional that we just wanted to give each moment its full due and focus.
Yeah, and that's a good point that Marian brings up, because we did speak quite adamantly about that. When I lost my husband and I was looking for a book on grief, and I've heard this from so many people that I've interviewed, when they first lost that person and they were looking for a book for support, they didn't want words all over the page, on all the pages. It was just too much, and they didn't want to be told what to do. So one of the goals we had was to keep it as simple as possible with as much space and breath. And on some of the pages, there's actually just a poem. And in the books that are coming out next year, we actually have more poems because they really allow for more space and more breath. So that's a very important point. Do you have the next slide, Shannon? Okay, so this is a green moment. Again, if we'd had, huge amounts of money, the green would be in green, but you have to just imagine that green. But we're going to read this one for you so you have a sense of how they feel and how they sound. So it always starts with the grieving person. Are you ready, Marian?
I am.
Okay. I would always ask my dad what he thought. Oh, sorry. This is from Loss of a Parent book. I would always ask my dad what he thought, from what I should take to my kindergarten play day or my university graduation party, to whether she was the girl I should marry. And then he was gone, just like that, gone. At first, I asked my older brother, thinking it might work out the same, but he wasn't like my dad. So I just tried to recreate my dad's voice in my head. We would talk together in my head. I believe decisions I made in my life would have been different if he had been there to help me, talk it out with me. I miss him every single day. Now I don't talk with him as much. Instead, I ask myself, what would Dad do? And I hope he answers me somehow.
Your conversations with him gave you confidence. They were anchoring. Part of what you have been doing as you grieve is internalize his voice, his ideas and advice. You are remembering him in those moments where you would still want to talk to him, remembering how he might reply. He will always be a voice you hear as you grow to hear and trust your own. That blending of your voice and his will become your anchor.
Oh, that makes me so happy, just so happy. And that is how the moments are written. This blank page suggestion says, think of a situation you are perplexed about. What would your parent advise? And those are the kinds of things that happen. Just reading this, it also reminded me that I wanted to mention that there is no, religion does not know grief. So this is written for people of any culture, of any religion, LGBTQ plus, men, women, and the voices change where sometimes when you read them, it could be a man, it could be a woman, or it just could be a feeling that it is a generic grieving. And we made quite a point to make sure these books are available for anybody who sits down with it in their hands.
Mhm.
Marian?
Yeah, agreed. Nothing to add to that. Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So do we have the last slide? So just to let you know, of course, the books are at the libraries. They are also at independent bookstores in towns. Indigo and Amazon do have them, although they seem to be struggling to print because of COVID, you know, loveliness. We do have the books ourselves, and Blue Moon does have them as well. If you go to our websites, which are at the bottom there, remember it's okay.com and marinalread.com, there are opportunities for you to email us as well. Marian, do you want to talk about the books coming out next year?
Yes, the three coming out next year are Loss of Pet, Loss of a Sibling or Friend, and Loss of a Child. And those three, same format, same sense of a cover with the window. That format is consistent through all the books. Mm-hmm. So they'll be hopefully in May. I think it's May they're coming out, May 2021.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to meet everybody and sign books and be in a different realm then. But great that we were able to do this today, and I hope it helps a number of people. So that's the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Marina and Marian. I'm just going to stop